Marcus Vale slammed his phone onto the table between the pizza boxes and unpaid bills, squeezing it until his knuckles turned white. The blue light reflecting off the cracked screen mercilessly illuminated the exhaustion on his face. 364. Just 364 damn comments. And half of them were spam ads from bot accounts. The other half were Marcus's paranormal investigation videos, which he had painstakingly crafted over the past 6 months, dedicating his nights to their production. Half of them were spam ads from bot accounts. The other half were teenagers mocking Marcus's paranormal investigation videos, which he had spent 6 months painstakingly crafting, dedicating his nights to their narrative. Dude, your makeup's running. Is that thing you call a ghost just a sheet? Close this channel, go be a cashier. I'm serious. Marcus looked out the only window in his room at the city's dirty, orange-hued night. Rent day had come. Mrs. Miller's patience, like Marcus's bank account, was running out. Either you play big, he whispered to himself, his voice echoing in the empty room, or you go down, and I'm going down. He sat down at his computer. His eyes were bloodshot, but he couldn't stop. The standard horror. Forums were useless now. Abandoned hospitals, old orphanages, all of them had been exploited and milked dry by hundreds of YouTubers. He needed a virgin place, somewhere no one dared go, a place with a fresh legend, a bloody curse. Later that night, he cleared his browser history, turned on his VPN, and dived into the deeper, darker layers of the internet. In a locked subforum of the Urban Explorers community, an old thread caught his eye. Thornwood Manor. The name alone seemed to weigh heavily on the screen. A gothic monster standing alone in a region at the northern tip of Virginia, dismissed by maps as wooded area, where even GPS signals faltered. The uploaded photos were grainy, but the aura they radiated was icy. Wooden doors rotting between the teeth of time, broken windows gazing like black holes, and at the very top, on the right tower's peak, rooms glowing as if they were the building's bloody eyes. The comments on the forum were far from ordinary trolling. One user wrote, "We tried flying a drone there in 2018. When the device got within 50 meters of the house, the connection dropped. We couldn't get it back. But in the last second footage, I swear someone was standing at the window." Another user added an older, more terrifying detail. 1873. Eliza. Another user added an older, more terrifying detail. 1873. Eliza. Thornwood. They say her husband locked her up there. Her body was never found, but locals say her bones still ache in the house's foundations. Those who enter that house don't come out, and those who do aren't the same. Marcus's heart began pounding in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was the excitement of a hunter who had spotted his prey. This was the golden ticket he had been searching for. The formula for going viral, getting getting out of debt, shoving the truth down the throats of those who wrote those humiliating comments, was right here. Thornwood, Marcus said, touching the photo on the screen. I'm going to make you famous. The preparation process was painful. His car, a 2004 Honda Civic with peeling paint, didn't look like it would withstand the long journey, but Marcus had no other choice. He filled the trunk with spare batteries, 2 professional flashlights, a night vision camera, voice recorders, and 3 days' worth of canned food. The most important thing he took with him was the tweet announcing to his followers that he would be live streaming. There was no turning back. When he set off, the sun hadn't risen yet. As the city receded, the traces of civilization began to fade. Highways gave way to cracked asphalt county roads, which in turn gave way to muddy forest trails. The radio signal fluctuated between static noise and the crackling of a preacher's voice, before finally going completely silent around 3 in the afternoon, when the GPS announced, "You have reached your destination." Marcus found himself facing nothing but a dense, untouched wall of forest. The road had ended. He parked the car among the bushes, as if trying to hide it from the forest. He slung his equipment bag over his shoulder. The weight cut into his shoulders, but the pain helped him focus. The interior of the forest was colder than it appeared from the outside. The trees were so dense and tall they blocked out the sky. As a result, a constant twilight prevailed inside. There was no wind, no bird song, only the crunch of dried leaves under Marcus's boots, and his own breathing could be heard. It was as if nature had held its breath, watching the uninvited guest. After about an hour's walk, the trees thinned out and opened up into a clearing. And there it stood in all its grandeur, Thornwood Manor. Photographs would pale in comparison to the reality. The building stood before him like a living organism, 3 stories tall. Its dark gray stone walls were covered in moss and vines. But these plants did not adorn the building. They seemed to suffocate it. The black-tiled roof was scaled and sharp-edged, like a dragon's back. The towers, rising at the 2 corners, resembled spears thrust into the sky. But what Marcus couldn't take his eyes off was the window on the top floor of the right tower. Its glass glowed not with the last rays of the setting sun, but with a sickly glow emanating from within, turning it crimson, blood red. And as Marcus stared at that window, he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. It was as if the window wasn't a piece of glass, but a giant pupil, and was now focused directly on Marcus's soul. A voice inside him, from deep within, screamed with a primal instinct, "Turn back. Run to the car and don't look back." Marcus suppressed that voice, as he always did, with his determination. He took his phone out of his pocket, smoothed his hair, and pressed record. He plastered a fake, energetic YouTuber, smile on his face. "Hello, everyone. I'm Marcus, and today I'm going to show you that famous place lost in internet legends. The one said to be cursed, Thornwood Manor. Rumor has it that those who enter this house never come back." He turned the camera toward the house, his voice taking on a dramatic tone. "Well then, is the host hospitable, or will he eat us for dinner?" He was joking, but even his own laughter sounded metallic and foreign to his ears. The stone path leading to the front door was hidden among the weeds. The steps in front of the door creaked with every step, as if groaning under a heavy load. The door was enormous, made of oak, and carved with strange symbols. There was no lock. The knocker was shaped like a rusted dragon's head. Marcus placed his hand on the door. The wood was cold, much colder than he had expected. He pushed lightly. The heavy door creaked open with a spine-chilling sound, like the groan of a giant awakening from a century-long sleep. The air that hit his face from inside carried mold, dampness, and an indescribable metallic. The air that hit his face from inside carried mold, dampness, and an indescribable metallic. "Smell the smell of old blood. Here we go," Marcus whispered. But this time he was speaking not to the camera, but to himself, to give himself courage. He lit his torch, and the beam of light sliced through the darkness and entered. He took his first step, and at that moment, the heavy oak door behind him slammed shut with a loud bang, as if pushed by an invisible hand, even though there was no wind. Bang! Marcus jumped up, immediately turning around. He grabbed the door handle. It was locked. The door, which had not even had a lock mechanism a moment ago, was now rock hard and immovable. "Great," he said in a trembling voice, turning the camera toward his face. Our entrance was eventful. Folks, the door slammed shut on us. Classic horror movie tactic. It was the wind, right? I mean, what else could it be? There was no reply, because the silence was more terrifying than the noise that had preceded it. The house had been waiting for Marcus to enter, and now it had swallowed its prey. The digestion was about to begin. The entrance hall was as spacious as a ballroom that once reflected the splendor of the aristocracy, but now it was as silent as a graveyard. The marble floor was covered with a thick layer of dust, but when Marcus swept his torch across it, he noticed something strange. There were no footprints in the dust, neither from those who had come before him, nor from insects. The dust was flawless, as if it had been sprinkled here only recently. The enormous staircase wound like a snake, leading to the upper floor, to the heart of the darkness. Most of the oil paintings hanging on the walls had succumbed to the dampness of time. Their paint, running faces had melted, landscapes blurred. However, a portrait right next to the staircase was different from the others. It seemed to defy time, vivid and fresh, as if the paint had dried only yesterday. a woman with pale skin and hair as black as night. Around her neck, a silver necklace that absorbed the light. And her eyes, whoever the painter was, they had given those eyes an unsettling liveliness. Wherever Marcus moved, he felt those eyes following him. It must have been a simple optical illusion, the Mona Lisa effect. But there was a detail Marcus didn't know. One that even the camera couldn't capture at that moment. When Marcus turned his back, the woman in the painting's lips curled upward in a millimeter-sized movement. "This place," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "This place really feels full." He struggled to choose the word. He didn't want to say cursed. He said full, because he felt he wasn't alone. Something was breathing inside the walls, under the floorboards. He decided to move forward. The living room was like an upside-down reality. The furniture was in place, but everything was wrong. Victorian-era heavy armchairs seemed mounted to the ceiling, chandeliers to the floor, as if gravity had gotten drunk here, lost its way. No, looking closely, he saw. The furniture wasn't nailed to the ceiling. It was piled up, like a barricade. He decided to move forward. The living room was like an upside-down reality. The furniture was in place, but it was all wrong. The heavy Victorian chairs didn't look like they were mounted to the ceiling, nor did the chandeliers to the floor. It was as if gravity had become drunk here, lost its way. No, looking closely, he saw. The furniture wasn't nailed to the ceiling. It was piled up, arranged like a barricade. It was as if someone had tried to block the middle of the room, not the door, to prevent something from entering. The kitchen was even more disturbing. Plates stood on the table, under centuries of dust on the porcelain. Plates were encrusted food scraps. The forks and knives had been left where they were, as if the diners had suddenly vanished into thin air. "Whoever escaped from here," said Marcus, bringing his camera closer to the table, "was in such a hurry they didn't even finish their meal." Just then, a sound came from upstairs. The sound of a heavy marble rolling across the wooden floor. Click, click, click. The sound stopped right above his head, on the ceiling. Then, a slow, rhythmic creaking began. The sound stopped right above his head, on the ceiling. Then, a slow, rhythmic creaking began, as if someone, right above where Marcus stood, was rocking back and forth in a rocking chair. Marcus shone his flashlight at the ceiling. His heartbeat pounded in his ears like a drum. "Is anyone there?" he shouted. The question was stupid. He was afraid of getting an answer, but he was even more afraid of the silence. "Is anyone there?" he shouted. It was a stupid question. He was afraid of getting an answer, but he was more afraid of the silence. The creaking above stopped. And out of that silence, like it was coming from the very foundations of the house, a muffled, feminine whisper drifted. "Welcome, Marcus." Marcus froze where he stood. She had said his name. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the creaking of old wood. Someone knew his name. Marcus stood there in the middle of the kitchen, the lantern trembling in his hand. His heart was pounding in his throat, but his brain was struggling to deny what he had heard. "Did you hear that?" he whispered into the camera, his voice cracking. The acoustics in old houses. Unbelievable. The wind comes in through the chimney and echoes off the wooden floors. Sounds like a human voice, doesn't it? It's called pareidolia, guys. Our brains attempt to match random sounds to words it knows. There's no one here, just us and decaying history. He took a deep breath, trying to believe his own lie, and left the kitchen. But that primal alarm inside him wouldn't stop. "You heard your name," the voice said. "The wind doesn't say Marcus." He headed for the stairs. The steps groaned with every step, as if annoyed at being stepped on. The lantern's light tried to pierce the darkness above, but the darkness seemed dense, as if swallowing the light. When he reached the second floor, the air temperature dropped noticeably. His breath now formed white clouds of vapor in the air. The corridor was long and lined with doors on both sides. He shone the lantern on the walls. The wallpaper was covered with intricate floral patterns from the Victorian era. Burgundy roses on a pale yellow background. Marcus switched the camera to macro mode and zoomed in on the patterns. "Look at the craftsmanship," he said. "Back in the day, wallpaper was handmade." His sentence trailed off. He focused on the image on his phone screen. What looked like flowers to the naked eye transformed into something else in the digital clarity of the screen. These weren't roses. These were tiny human faces, intertwined, their mouths gaping as if screaming, their eyes hollowed out. Thousands, tens of thousands of faces, clinging to each other along the wall, shouting in a silent chorus. Marcus lowered the phone and looked at the wall with his naked eye. The flowers had returned. He looked at the screen again. The faces were there, and they were moving, very slightly, millimeter by millimeter, as if trying to push their way out of the wall. "Optical illusion," he said quickly, but his hand was shaking as he put the phone in his pocket. A defect in the camera lens. He rushed into the first room. It was a bedroom, but not an ordinary one. Instead of walls, it was covered floor to ceiling with mirrors. But none of the mirrors were intact. They were all cracked like spider webs radiating out from the center. The shards of glass on the floor sparkled like diamond dust in the flashlight's beam. When Marcus entered the room, thousands of reflections entered with him. In each mirror fragment, there was a shattered Marcus. "Wow," he said, "the mirror room. I absolutely have to make this the cover photo." He turned the camera on himself and posed toward one of the mirrors. He raised his hand and made a victory sign, but his reflection in the mirror did not make a victory sign. His reflection just stood there. His arms hung at his sides, his head slightly bowed. Marcus froze. He lowered his arm. A second later, The reflection in the mirror raised its arm and made a victory sign. Then it lowered it again. Delay. There was a terrifying lag between reality and its reflection. It was as if the image in the mirror was another being trying to mimic Marcus, but with a slow reaction time. Marcus took a step back in horror. His reflection remained where it was, then slowly raised its head and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. That gaze held an expression Marcus did not possess. Pure, distilled hatred. "That's enough," Marcus said, his voice rising in panic. "This room, it's causing hallucinations because of the magnetic field. There could be a gas leak. Carbon monoxide. I have to get out." As he left the room, a low, chorus-like laugh rose from the thousands of mirror fragments behind him. A sharp, cold laugh, like glass shards rubbing together. He hurried toward the end of the corridor. His goal was to reach the third floor, the tower. He would get there, say, "See, it's empty," and escape this cursed place. When he reached the top of the stairs, one last room caught his attention. The door was ajar, and the smell of rotten lavender wafted out. This smell was different from the musty smell in the rest of the house. It was inviting. He slipped inside. This must be the master bedroom. In the middle of the room stood a huge canopy bed, surrounded by dusty tulle. And on the bed, a black lace dress was spread out. The dress was so neatly, so carefully placed that it looked as if an invisible woman was lying on her back. The bust area was puffed out, the skirt draped over the edge of the bed. On the chest of the dress lay a yellowed parchment paper. Marcus approached. He focused the lantern's light on the paper. The handwriting was elegant and curvy, but the letters were pressed down, as if the hand holding the pen had trembled with anger. "If you're reading this, it's too late. You should have closed the door. But don't worry, loneliness only hurts at first. Then we become your family." There was no date at the bottom of the note. No signature. Marcus picked up the paper. It was warm, like human skin. He threw it onto the bed in disgust. "Someone is playing games with me," he said. "Someone came here before me and set up these devices. Very funny, really very funny." He was shouting, but he didn't know who he was shouting at. He was trying to turn his fear into anger, because fear was paralyzing him. He rushed out of the room and headed for the narrow, spiral staircase. Third floor, the tower, the room with the red windows. He would go up there, take a picture of the damn view, and leave. The stairs were so narrow that his shoulders rubbed against the walls. The higher he climbed, the more stifling it became. His ears rang, as if exposed to high pressure. When he reached the top step, he found a heavy, iron-banded door in front of him. He tried the door handle. It was locked. "Damn it," Marcus shouted, kicking the door. "Open up." Just as he was about to turn back, he felt the weight in his pocket. It was the rusty, old key he had found on the coat rack at the entrance below, and casually stuffed into his pocket. He couldn't even remember why he had taken it. It was as if his hand had acted independently of his brain. He took out the key. With trembling hands, he inserted it into the lock. The key slid in as if greased and turned with a solid. Click! The door opened silently, as if someone were pulling it from the inside. Inside, it was clean. The rot, dust, and cobwebs downstairs were nowhere to be found here. The wooden floor shone as if it had been polished. In the middle of the room was a mahogany desk and a comfortable chair. And on the opposite wall was that window, the glass, which looked blood red from the outside, also painted the world red from the inside. Marcus entered. The air here was different. Moonlight filtered through the glass and filled the room, covering everything in a red filter like a photographer's darkroom. Marcus entered. The air here was different. It was electric. He felt a tingling sensation on his skin. On the desk lay a thick, leather-bound notebook. Marcus approached the chair. The camera was recording. "This is it," he whispered. "The heart of the legend. The Red Room." He reached for the notebook. He opened the cover. On the first page, the ink was so fresh it looked like it would smudge if he touched it. Eliza Thornwood. He began turning the pages. These were diary entries. October 18, 1873. He locked me up again. He knows I'm afraid of the dark. But there's one thing that stupid man doesn't understand. The dark listens to me better than he does. Marcus flipped through the pages quickly. The handwriting changed from page to page. What started as elegant handwriting became sharp, angular, and messy as the pages progressed. It was as if the writer was losing their mind as they wrote. November 3, 1873. They're not bringing food anymore. My water is almost gone, but I'm not hungry. The walls are whispering to me. They're teaching me how to feed them. Marcus's throat went dry. He reached the last page. The last page was written in a liquid that looked like red ink. "Welcome, my guest. Don't turn around, just listen." Marcus's breath caught. He felt a cold, icy breath on the back of his neck. Someone was standing right behind him, right next to his ear. He felt his hair being pulled, his skin tightening. He shouldn't have turned around. The note said so. But human nature, the instinct to survive. He shouldn't turn around. The note said so. But human nature, the survival instinct, took over. He spun around quickly. No one was there. Only the open door, slowly closing. No. Marcus leaped over the table and ran to the door. But he didn't make it. The door slammed shut with a clang. He grabbed the doorknob. It was locked. "Hey, open up. Who's in there?" He pounded on the door. The wood was solid, not even budging. The air in the room changed. That calm, clean air was gone, replaced by a heavy, metallic, blood-scented atmosphere. The light coming through the red window began to flicker, and in the corner of the room, a shadow that had been hidden in the shadows until then moved. The shadow detached itself from the wall. It gained dimension. It took the form of a woman with pale skin, wearing a black lace dress, a silver necklace around her neck. The woman in the painting, Eliza, but she wasn't as still as in the painting. She wasn't floating in the air. She was standing firmly on the ground. Her face bore an expression of fatigue brought on by centuries and a twisted curiosity. "Why are you shouting, Marcus?" she said. Her voice echoed not in Marcus's ears, but directly inside his mind. The world outside was too noisy. Here we will learn silence. Marcus leaned his back against the door. He shone his flashlight at the woman, but the light seemed to pass right through her. You're not real," Marcus stammered. "This is a hologram, a projection." You're not real," Marcus stammered. "This is a hologram, a projection." Eliza smiled. Her mouth opened to an anatomically impossible width, slightly wider than it should have been. Her teeth were gray and sharp. "Real," said Eliza, taking a step toward him. "As real as pain." It was strange that Marcus's first reaction was not fear, but pure rage. When confronted with an impossible situation, the human mind first denies it. He paced around the room like an animal. He slammed his shoulders against the door repeatedly. The wood didn't even creak. Then he grabbed the chair and hurled it at the tower window. Bam! The chair bounced back as if it had hit a rock, and its leg broke. The glass hadn't shattered. It hadn't even cracked. Marcus picked up one of the chair's pieces and approached the glass. He hit it again. Then he stopped. The sound that came when he hit the glass wasn't the sound of glass. It was a dull, wet sound. He put his hand on the glass. The glass was warm and soft. He felt something beating deep beneath the glass, like a pulse. This room wasn't made of glass and stone. This room was alive. "Get me out of here," he shouted, his voice tearing from his constricted throat. "Is this a joke? A camera prank? I'll sue you. I'll make you all suffer." The only thing that answered was the echo of her own voice. Eliza was gone, or hiding. She grabbed her phone. No signal. Even emergency calls wasn't working. The battery was at 12%. Panicked, she turned off the camera. She turned off the flashlight. Darkness instantly engulfed her. But this was not the peaceful darkness of night. That sickly light seeping through the red window turned the room into a photo darkroom, stretching the shadows and transforming them into shapeless monsters. She collapsed into a corner. She began to wait. Someone would come in the morning. They had to come. The flow of time first broke down in her stomach. Hunger began as a slight ache. The flow of time first broke down in his stomach. Hunger began as a slight ache, then turned into a mouse gnawing at his insides. He looked at his watch. It had stopped. The second hand was stuck, trembling between 12 and 1. "I'm thirsty," he said to the silence. His tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. In the middle of the room, a sound came as if from nothingness. The sound of a ceramic plate scraping against the floor. Marcus raised his head. In the middle of the room, where there had been nothing a moment ago, stood a silver tray. On it was a steaming meat dish and a crystal carafe full of water. Marcus's mind screamed, "This is impossible. Where did it come from? Is it poisoned?" But his body didn't listen to his mind. He crawled toward the tray. He grabbed the carafe and drank from it. The water was cool, sweet. It was the best water he had ever tasted in his life. Then he attacked the meat. He tore it apart with his hands and stuffed it into his mouth. The taste was incredible. Juicy, spicy, warm. "Eat slowly," said a voice. Eliza sat at the table, watching him, swinging her legs. Her face showed a mixture of disgust and pity. "There's more." Marcus didn't respond. He kept chewing. But as his stomach filled, the taste in his mouth began to change. That magnificent meat flavor gave way to an earthy, moldy taste. He felt crunchy things in his mouth, spice-like things moving. He vomited. He threw up everything he had eaten, along with the bile in his stomach, onto the floor. When he looked at his vomit, he recoiled in horror. What he had thrown up wasn't meat. It was rotten pieces of wood, dead flies, and a pile of gray dust. "What?" he gagged. "What did you feed me?" Eliza chuckled. "I gave you the truth, Marcus, but your stomach is still accustomed to lies. Everything here is an illusion, just like life outside." Marcus wiped his mouth. He spat, but the rotten taste wouldn't go away. "Why?" he asked. "Why me?" Eliza slid to the floor. She came to his side. She touched Marcus's sweaty forehead with her cold fingers. "Because you wanted it," she said. "You sought me out. You disturbed me. Didn't you say, 'Go big or go home'? Well, we're going big." At that moment, Marcus realized this woman wasn't just a ghost. She was a parasite playing with his mind. Days, or what Marcus thought were days, blended into one long, dark cycle. His phone had long since died. Now that black screen was just a mirror reflecting his own wretched face. His beard had grown long. The hollows under his eyes had deepened, his cheekbones protruding as if they would tear through his skin. He relieved himself in a corner of the room. At first, he had been ashamed, disgusted, but now the smell no longer bothered him. The smell was part of the room. He was part of the room. He no longer feared Eliza. He hated her, but he also needed her, because she was the only one he could talk to. "Tell me a story today," said Marcus, lying on the floor, counting the cracks in the ceiling. His voice was raspy. Eliza stood on the windowsill. "Which story do you want?" "Your husband," said Marcus. "Tell me how you killed him." Again, Eliza smiled. She loved this story. "He was strong," said Eliza, her eyes drifting away. "His hands didn't hurt when he beat me, but his spirit was weak. When I locked him in the basement, He tried to break the door the first day, just like you. The second day he begged. The third day he cried. He cried like a baby. Listening to him in the dark was the most beautiful music I've ever heard. Marcus laughed, a dry, soulless laugh. Music, he said. Yes, a symphony of screams. He was surprised by his own words. Had he said that? Or were Eliza's thoughts seeping into his mind? He could no longer tell if he was asleep or awake. In his dreams, he saw himself walking out the red door, returning home. His mother hugged him, saying it's over. But her face melted away, revealing Eliza's face beneath. He woke up and was back in that red room. Sometimes he saw hallucinations, insects crawling on the walls, the camera in his hand turning into a snake, his own fingers melting like wax and dripping. In a moment of crisis, he began scratching the floor with his nails. He wanted to feel pain, real pain. His nails broke, his fingertips bled. He wrote with his blood on the floor, "I am Marcus Vale. I am real." Eliza appeared at his bedside. She looked at the writing. "Names don't matter," she said softly. "Here, there is only us." "No," Marcus said, clenching his teeth. "I had a life. I had followers. I had debts. He couldn't continue. He couldn't remember. What was his house number? What color were his mother's eyes? What was his favorite food? It was all fading away. His mind was like a beach being washed by waves. With each wave, another memory was washed out to sea and lost. "Let it go," whispered Eliza, close to his ear. "Don't resist. Forgetting is freedom." Marcus rested his head on Eliza's lap. It was cold, but comfortable. "Maybe you're right," he murmured. Outside was exhausting. Everyone expected something. Here, there is no expectation. Eliza's fingers ran through Marcus's dirty, greasy hair. Not with a mother's tenderness, but with the superiority of an owner petting a dog. "Good," she said. "You finally understand." Marcus closed his eyes. The intoxicating sweetness of surrender coursed through his veins. The battle was over. He had lost, and it brought a strange peace. At that very moment, an image flashed behind his eyelids. A very clear, very sharp image. The corner of the room, one of the floorboards. It was loose, more so than the others. And beneath it, there was a white glow. This image did not come from Eliza. It was the last flicker of Marcus's own subconscious. Or perhaps it was a warning from something else in the room. He opened his eyes. Eliza was walking toward the window. Her back was turned. Marcus gathered his last shred of willpower. He had to pretend to be defeated. But that faint voice inside him, the voice that said, "I am Marcus Vale," was not dead yet. He waited for a moment when Eliza's form blurred, became transparent. Her power usually waned. Around dawn, he waited. When Eliza turned into a shadow on the wall, he silently crawled to the corner. He found the plank. He dug his nails into the gap. It hurt, but he didn't care. He pried the plank loose. He prayed it wouldn't creak. The board lifted, and there, among the dust and spider webs, lay a yellowed envelope. Marcus picked up the envelope with his trembling hand. This was no hallucination. The texture of the paper was real. Dry, stiff, real paper. Not slippery and wet like Eliza's illusions. There was only one name written on it in handwriting. Jonathan. Marcus was clutching the paper so tightly that his knuckles had turned chalk white. Eliza stood in front of the window, facing the moonlight, murmuring to herself. She was singing an old lullaby. The melody was sad, but the words... Marcus forced himself not to hear the words, shielding the lantern with his body. He began to read the letter in the flickering light. Dear unfortunate soul, know one now. If you are reading this, it means you have fallen for that woman's lies. She is not Eliza Thornwood. Well, she once was, but she died in 1873. When her husband imprisoned her, Eliza did not die of hunger. She fed on hatred. The fire of vengeance consumed her soul and left nothing human behind. She is now the heart of this house. These walls are her flesh, these corridors her veins. She keeps you here because she fears loneliness, but not because he loves you. He loves you like a spider loves a fly in its web. He feeds on your fear, your hope. I am Jonathan Harver. I came in 1954. I tried to escape. I tried to break the windows, but the glass won't break. The walls won't fall. There is only one way out, the weak spot. The basement, the red door. The basement, the red door. Eliza doesn't mention that door. She doesn't want you to go down there, because that door is where the house's curse began, where she buried her husband. If you can find that door and open it, the spell will be broken. The house's heart will stop. She noticed me. She's coming. I'm hiding this letter. I hope you're smarter than I was. Note, you'd think the tower door's lock can't be opened from the inside. But the keyhole is a trick. Insert the key and turn it the opposite way. Twice. This was the servant's escape mechanism. Hurry. Marcus took the letter down. His heart was pounding as if it would burst through his chest. Jonathan had failed. Could he succeed? Eliza's voice startled him. What are you hiding there, Marcus? Marcus quickly crumpled the letter in his hand and shoved it into his pocket. He put on the blank, obedient expression he'd been practicing for days. Nothing, he said, his voice cracking. Just a bug. I was watching it. Eliza turned her head. Her eyes were pitch black wells. For a moment, she scanned the depths of Marcus's soul. She searched for the lie. Bugs are good, he said finally, losing interest. They're like us, trapped in their little worlds. Insects are good, she said finally, losing interest. They're like us, trapped in their little worlds. She turned back to the window. The sun was about to rise, or so Marcus felt. Eliza's form was weakening as the daylight approached. Her energy was draining. "I'm tired," Eliza said, her voice becoming a whisper. "I'll rest a little. Be quiet, Marcus. Don't wake me." And then, before his eyes, she melted away. Her body turned to smoke, seeping into the patterns of the wallpaper and disappearing. The room fell silent. Marcus waited. A second, a minute, an hour. He had to be sure. He had to be sure Eliza was gone for good. Then he moved. His legs wouldn't hold him, weakened by days of inactivity and hunger. Crawling like a zombie, he reached the door. He pulled the rusty key from his pocket. His hand was shaking so much, it took 3 tries to get the key into the lock. "Please," he prayed. "Please, Jonathan, tell the truth." He inserted the key. He tried turning it to the left. It locked. He turned it to the right. It locked. "The wrong way," he whispered. He inserted the key again. He pressed lightly and forced it in an illogical direction, as if trying to break the lock. He felt resistance. Then a metallic click sounded from inside the mechanism. This sound echoed through the silent house like a gunshot. Marcus held his breath. He waited. Would Eliza come? Would the walls scream? Nothing happened. He lowered the door handle. The door opened. The scent of freedom. No, it wasn't the scent of freedom. The air coming from the hallway smelled of mold and decay, but to Marcus, this smell was the most beautiful perfume in the world. Getting out of that red room was like being reborn. He stepped into the hallway. The wooden floor groaned under his weight. Screech. Marcus froze. The sound was too loud. "Stay calm," he told himself. "Just walk, fast but quiet." He headed for the stairs. Below was dark. His lantern's battery was completely dead. There was only a faint gray light seeping through the windows. Shadows stretched and shifted. When he reached the 2nd floor, he sensed something had changed in the house. The door to the mirror room was wide open. From inside came those familiar sounds of glass shattering. Click and click, as if thousands of tiny feet were walking on the glass. The faces on the wallpaper were no longer whispering. They were screaming. A silent scream. Marcus clung to the banister, trying not to look at them. "Where are you going, my love?" The voice came from right behind him. Very close. Close enough to make the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Marcus didn't look back. He knew if he did, he would die. Jonathan had warned him. He threw himself forward. He started down the stairs. Silence no longer mattered to him. He was running, or trying to run. His weak legs tangled. He stumbled. He fell. He fell down the stairs, landing in the entrance hall, his shoulder hitting the steps hard. The pain spread through his whole body, like electricity. "Get up," he yelled at himself. "Get up, or you'll rot here." He forced himself to his feet. He looked at the painting in the entrance hall. That damn painting. The frame was empty. Eliza wasn't in the frame. "She's here," Marcus said. "She's everywhere." He ran to the kitchen. Jonathan hadn't said the basement door was in the kitchen, but he remembered the house's layout. In old houses, pantries and basement entrances were always in the kitchen. He plunged into the kitchen. Those disgusting plates were still on the table, but now all the chairs were facing the door, as if an invisible jury were watching his entrance. In the corner, next to the locked cupboard, there was a narrow wooden door. Its color faded, almost, blending into the wall. Marcus attacked the door. It wasn't locked. When he opened the door, the air that hit his face was so cold he thought his eyelashes would freeze. A cold coming from below, from 7 stories down. And that smell earth, dampness, and iron. The stairs were pitch black. Marcus, the voice was now at the kitchen door. It wasn't angry. It was mocking. The game's over, Marcus. Stop being naughty. Come back. I'll make you your favorite meal. Marcus didn't answer. He let himself fall into the dark stairwell. Feeling his way, he began to climb down, clinging to the walls. His foot hit something slippery, moss or blood. He didn't know, and he slid down the last 5 steps. He slammed into the hard floor. His knees were shattered. He gasped for breath in the darkness. His eyes tried to adjust to the blackness. And there, at the very edge of the darkness, under a faint beam of light, he saw it. The red door, not a bright, vibrant red like the window in the room. This was a rusty, blood-stained, dull, ominous red. There was no handle on the door, only a massive iron ring in the center, and sounds were coming from behind the door. Not whispers, not screams. This sound, was it the sound of Istanbul traffic? Horns, the murmur of people, a subway, announcement. Marcus's brain couldn't process it. Didn't this door open to hell? Why were the sounds of civilization coming from behind it? It's a trap, a voice inside him said. This is your only chance, Jonathan's voice said. It's your only chance, said Jonathan's voice. Above, the kitchen door creaked open. Eliza's heels began to echo on the stairs. Tap, tap, tap. With each step, the air in the basement grew heavier. Marcus crawled to the door. He grabbed the iron ring. It was ice cold. Don't do it, a scream erupted from the stairs. Eliza's voice was no longer human. It was the roar of a beast. If you open that door, we'll all be destroyed. That's exactly why, Marcus said through clenched teeth. Summoning all his strength, he pulled on the iron ring. The door creaked open, as if tearing apart flesh and bone. A blinding white light burst from inside. Marcus was blinded. His body was drawn to the light's pull. Eliza's hands clamped onto Marcus's ankle with one final effort. Her nails dug into his flesh. Eliza's hands clamped onto Marcus's ankle in a final effort. Her nails dug into his flesh. Don't leave me, Eliza begged. Her voice was now like that of a little girl. I don't want to be alone. Marcus looked at Eliza's ice-cold hand. Then, at the white light, he kicked Eliza in the face with his other foot. "Enjoy your solitude," he said, and he let himself fall into the white void. The white light flashed like a flash that burned Marcus's consciousness, and then it went out. When he opened his eyes, there was no blinding light. There was a gray, hazy sky. The air filling his lungs was not the musty breath of the basement. It smelled of earth, mud, and pine resin. And Marcus coughed and sat up. His hands sank into wet grass. He was outside. He was truly outside. Thornwood Manor rose behind him like a giant tombstone, but he was no longer inside the house. He had fallen among the bushes, about 20 meters from the main gate. "I did it," he whispered. His voice trembled. He began to laugh, a hysterical, uncontrollable laugh. "I beat you, bitch, I beat you." He tried to stand up, but his legs were like jelly. Still, he didn't care. He would crawl, if he had to, but he would get out of here. He would get to his car, step on the gas, and wouldn't stop until he was back where civilization was, back on paved roads, back at traffic lights. He staggered toward where he had left his car, toward the bushes. But something was strange in the forest. Silence. The forest wasn't as quiet as it had been the day Marcus arrived. On the contrary, it was too quiet. There was no wind. The leaves weren't moving. The birds seemed suspended in the air. It was as if someone had pressed the universe's pause button, and then he heard it, the sound of an engine, a strained, sputtering engine. Marcus stopped. A rescue team, he thought. Has someone come looking for me? The sound was getting closer. A car coming down the forest road, through the bushes. Marcus threw his arms up and ran onto the road. "I'm here, Hayes, help." The car rounded the bend. Marcus' arms froze in the air. His blood ran cold. The approaching car was not a rescue vehicle. It was not a police car. It was a gray 2004 Honda Civic with peeling paint. It was his car. "No," Marcus said, backing away. "No, my car was parked there. Someone must have stolen it. Someone." The car stopped right in front of Marcus, where the road ended. The engine cut out. The driver's door opened, and someone got out. A young man. He was wearing Marcus's favorite green cargo jacket. His hair was styled. His face was clean-shaven, energetic. There was that familiar gleam of ambition in his eyes. He was holding a state-of-the-art phone and pressing the record button. This was Marcus, but not the Marcus who had gone weeks without food. His beard grown out, his nails torn off. This was Marcus on his first day at Thornwood Manor. "No," Marcus whispered. "This can't be." Young Marcus locked the car, talking into his phone. "Hello, everyone. Marcus is here, and today I'm going to show you one of the most cursed places on the internet. Thornwood Manor." His voice was so lively, so full of hope. Marcus ran toward him in panic. "Stop," he shouted. "Don't go in there. Don't you dare go in. Turn back, you idiot. Turn back." He jumped on top of young Marcus. He wanted to grab him by the shoulders and shake him, punch him in the face, and shove him back into the car. But his hands passed right through young Marcus's shoulders. Like passing through smoke, Marcus stumbled and fell to the other side. He couldn't touch his own body. Young Marcus paused. He shivered slightly. He adjusted the collar of his coat. The air suddenly got cold, he said to the camera. This place is really atmospheric, guys. Marcus got up from the ground. He felt his own face with his hands. He had a face. He could feel his body. He could feel the pain, but young Marcus couldn't see him. He couldn't hear him. "See me?" Marcus shouted at young Marcus's face. "I'm here, I am. You're about to die." Young Marcus waved his hand in the air, as if swatting a fly, and continued walking towards the imposing door of the house. And in that moment, Marcus understood the truth. That red door in the basement, it wasn't an exit. That door was the house's backstage. It was behind the scenes. When he passed through that door, he left time behind. He left space behind. Now he was part of Eliza's collection. Young Marcus reached the door. He pushed it. The door creaked open. Marcus ran after it. "Don't go in." Young Marcus went inside. The door began to close rapidly with an invisible wind. Marcus reached the threshold just before the door closed, but he couldn't get inside. An invisible barrier stopped him. And on the other side of the door, in the dark hallway of the house, a familiar silhouette appeared. Eliza, but this time, there was someone else beside her in the black lace dress. A man with a torn green cargo jacket, his eyes gouged out, his skin rotting, emaciated. Marcus's corpse. The dead Marcus inside looked at the spirit Marcus outside. And Eliza smiled. "You can't stop him," said Eliza. Her voice echoed not in Marcus's mind, but throughout the entire forest. "The story must be told, Marcus. The audience is waiting." The door slammed shut. Marcus was left outside, but he wasn't free. He was in the garden of Thornwood Manor. He ran to the edge of the forest. But every time he entered the forest, he reappeared in front of the house through the mist. He ran right. He ended up in front of the house. He ran left. He ended up in front of the house. This was an aquarium, and he was the new ornamental fish. Evening fell. The windows of the house lit up one by one. Marcus sat in the garden and waited. There was nothing else he could do but wait. Then the top window of the right tower, the window of the red room, lit up. Marcus looked up. There was a silhouette at the window. Young Marcus. He was examining the room with a flashlight. He found the notebook. He was reading it. And then young Marcus approached the window. He looked outside into the darkness. Marcus waved at him from below, from the garden. Tears were streaming from his eyes. "Run," he whispered. "Please run." Young Marcus above saw movement below. He zoomed the camera there. "There's someone outside," he said in the video. Someone is standing in the garden. Marcus realized what he had become at that moment. He was no longer Jonathan Harver's letter. He was no longer Eliza's victim. He was the bait that drew in the next victim. He was the proof of the legend. He was the shadow at the window, and the man in the garden mentioned in the comments. Eliza was right. He was no longer alone. Eliza was right. He was no longer alone. 6 months later, those final moments captured on Marcus's camera spread like a virus into the infinite void of the digital world. The video, uploaded with the title, "The Last Images of the Missing YouTuber," was viewed by 14 million people in just a few weeks. People watched the fatting of a man's soul from the safety of their warm homes, under the secure glow of their screens, munching on popcorn. People watched, in the warmth of their homes, under the safe glow of their screens, as a man's soul faded away, munching on popcorn. The comments section was like the trash heap of the modern world. Some claimed it was a flawless fabrication, and that Marcus would soon launch his own brand and return rich. Others had caught that split-second detail in the 14th minute of the video. "Look closely at the mirror," said one. "The shadow behind him isn't just a shadow. It resembles Marcus himself, but an aged, decayed Marcus." The police reports, however, were much shorter and clearer. During the raid on Thornwood Manor, neither a red door nor a body could be found in the basement. The walls were bare, the floor clean. However, there was one detail the police hesitated to put in the records, discussing it only in whispers. In the darkest corner of the basement, carved into the wall with fingernails, was a bloody inscription. It was neither a cry for help nor a farewell note. It was the cruelest joke of a modern tragedy. Don't forget to subscribe. When the screen went black at the end of the video, millions of viewers thought they heard only static. But those who turned up the volume could hear, deep within that digital noise, a muffled, trembling whisper mingling with the howl of the wind. "I am the truth.